Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Ash and Rima from Mass Effect Odyssey, and today we bring you a revisit of a theory that was kind of around a little while ago, but has kind of been forgotten in time. And this is a theory regarding the Citadel DLC in Mass Effect 3. And this is that the Citadel DLC is actually the Afterlife and Shepard is dead, and it's kind of Shepard's perfect image of him and being happy and being with his friends and everything. So this is one that Rima's been reading up on as well. So Rima, did you want to enlighten us a little bit more?
Okay, so this is we kind of were looking, because once we did the Stargazer theory, and we did the one on indoctrination theory, I kind of wanted to look at like other speculations about the ending and things like that. And one that came up was one done in 2013 when the Citadel DLC was released. And the one I'm looking at is a blog written on Kotaku, but I know he's done it on his own blog as well. So I can maybe find the link for that and put it up. But it's by Jordan Rivas. I think that's what his name is. But it's called One Last Crazy Theory About Mass Effect 3. And it's a fairly really long one. A lot of it's kind of you can probably skim read a lot of it, but it's actually quite interesting. And he kind of talks about the Citadel DLC and discusses that he does say it's a crazy theory. So he's kind of saying that what we said about the Stargazer theory, that it's kind of like a big wild theory that he's just kind of putting out there, seeing if anyone wants to go for it. And it's that the Citadel DLC is actually Shepard's afterlife, and Shepard did actually die at the end of Mass Effect 3. Which is interesting, and he's kind of brought up some evidence to kind of suggest why it could be, as well as why he thinks it's a really nice ending that way. So he says that it's a very, the Citadel DLC is almost like the perfect ending for all the gamers who played Mass Effect. It's what we all kind of wanted. We wanted Shepard to be with all their squad mates, a really like happy, kind of like almost nostalgic. There's a lot of like throwbacks to the old jokes, things like that. It was very much like a nostalgia, it was a very much like fan bait, and that was what the DLC was for. The DLC is my favorite DLC of the Mass Effect trilogy. It may be my favorite DLC of all the games I've ever played. I love the DLC. Yeah. But a lot of people kind of assume that it was done because they were trying to appease the fans because of the ending. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. I think that might be part of it. But they're saying that because the gamers kind of wanted it, it's also an ideal way of ending Shepard's journey. And because it's so ideal, it almost seems too perfect to actually be kind of related to the story whatsoever. So he proposes that this is maybe actually just Shepard actually passing on, and Shepard's in heaven, basically experiencing their life with their family, their friends in this ideal like world. So he sparks up a few kind of pieces of evidence. We'll go through them really quickly because we're not going to make this video very long. So the first piece of evidence he talks about is that you can speak to Avina on the Silverstone strip, and apparently you can ask Avina. I've spoken to Avina about this before. It didn't actually trigger anything in my head that anything was going on, but after reading it kind of made me think, oh, okay. You can go speak to Avina and ask her a few questions and things like that, and she kind of answers jokingly to a lot of it, because the Citadel DLC is quite like satire, so it tries to make fun of a lot of the old like tropes in the game. But you can ask her about the Purgatory Club in the Citadel. And for some reason, she defines it as, she doesn't know that it's a club for some reason. She can't define it as a club. And she also starts to talk about it being like a religious concept. That it's like, obviously, the portion before, like limbo, before you go into the afterlife. And when Shepard tries to clarify, she says that she has no record of purgatory whatsoever. Which is kind of strange, considering that Avina is meant to know everything. And you can go to Purgatory. Purgatory, yeah, there is Arya sitting in the middle of it, so it might be a little bit shady, but it's nowhere near as shady as Afterlife in Omega, so the Citadel authorities probably wouldn't, like, hide it for any reason, but it's kind of strange that Avina doesn't seem to include it in her, like, dialogue of everything that she has. So that's one of his theories, like, why would Avina not know where it is? And it's very, very on the nose that it's saying that it's like a religious concept, and you know, maybe you're stuck in limbo, kind of like that. And the Mass Effect's always had this kind of like fascination with like life after death. They name one club Purgatory, they name the other one Afterlife. There's so many references to death in that game over and over again. Shepard literally dies in the end of Mass Effect 2 and then comes back to life. It's very strange. Death seems to be a very particular subject in this game. And that maybe the developers actually wanted to give Shepard a proper send-off this way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. There's not, to be honest, that much information that he's giving. He's not giving that much evidence. It's basically based on that evidence and then his opinion. But I think he's kind of trying to allude that Shepard has this big giant, like, it's perfect because you're having a giant party. You get to speak to, like, you kind of have like connections to old dead teammates, like, you know, Thane and Morden. You get to meet all your past, like every single one of your old squad mates if you manage to keep them all alive. You get all these like random throwbacks to all these old characters that you just, it's obviously meant to be a throwback to the entire series, and it kind of meant to allude to the fact that maybe this is all in Shepard's afterlife after Mass Effect 3's ending. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I think that the one drawback of it is that you have to play the DLC before you actually finish the game. So yeah, that's kind of a rather large nail in the coffin, as it were.
Yeah, that's only that is, mind you, you can, once you finish Mass Effect 3, it sets you back before the start of the Soul anyway, so you could technically go back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can probably play it again afterwards, but in terms of like if it was your first playthrough and you bought all the DLC at the same time, you would play that definitely before the end. So yeah, so that's kind of the one only and rather large drawback to this theory, but it is a nice theory, and it is nice to think that maybe is like his like final kind of thought kind of thing.
Yeah, and I like one line in this article is basically says it's an awesome way to be dead. It is. Like, you think about it, the way Shepard spends his time is just hanging out individually. You get to basically say goodbye to every single one of your friends.
Yeah, that's it.
One after another.
Yeah.
And kind of have a proper send-off. So, whether it's, I wouldn't say it's a theory. I think it's more of a thought. He's kind of come up with a thought. And then think about what we think about the Citadel DLC. Yeah. So, it's up to you guys what you think about it. You can agree or disagree with this idea if you want. We'll link you the article. I would suggest reading it. It's quite interesting. And I wouldn't take it as like doctrine and fact that he definitely thinks. This is the way he thinks of the ending, because that's the way he likes to think of the ending. Yeah. Much like some people like to think the indoctrination theory, this is what he thinks. It's interesting. I kind of like the idea. I don't personally think it, but
yeah. But it's a nice thought.
It's a nice thought. So tell us what you think in the comments. Please share the video and like to help us with the channel, and we will hopefully see you next time.